Blessed is he who comes in the name of Yahuah. Blessed is he who comes in the name of Yahuah.
All right, Shabbat Shalom, Miss Bakah. This is Moreh Medad Yahuah ben Yashriel. We're thankful for another Shabbat that the Father has allowed us to see. And just want to make sure everything's functioning accordingly, and looks like we're in good functioning order. So just want to, let's get started. We asked for your prayers. I had a aunt that passed away overnight. She was 80 years old, and she was always a joy to be around. So just ask for prayers for her family, and because people are allowed to grieve. Some even sometimes when it's better for a person to go on and to just be at rest because of suffering. And it's still hard. It's still an adjustment, but we just trust that that the Father knows who to take and when to take, and He knows what He's doing. So I want to welcome you to Living Branch Hebrew Assembly, and we're reaching out globally. We're stretching out to those all across the globe that are looking for the Father, searching for Yahuah and Yahushua, the Messiah or the Hamashiach. And we're trusting that we are definitely reaching people all across the world. And we're thankful to the Father for allowing us to be able to reach out. So I'm going to ask my assistants if they would come and give us our information about Living Branch Hebrew Assembly. We'll have Kiki, if she would give us our website.
www.living-branch.org.
And then if you want to reach us, or you have questions, or you want information, you can send your email to our email address, which is
info@living-branch.org.
Thank you, Bina. They always do a wonderful job. And they're very enthusiastic. So we're just glad for another study. Now, what I wanted to do, we're going to go into our study. Hopefully we'll make it through all of it. I'm going to hopefully show you a couple of things. Vayikra, which is, and he called. So go to Leviticus, the first chapter. Some say some say Uigra. You got a different ways people like to pronounce it, but just for our studies, we'll pronounce it Leviticus because we're trying to just serve a mass group of people. But we'll show you where the definition comes from. So as I switch here, I'm going to ask Maisha if she would read the first and second verse, and then that's where we'll get our definition, and I'll show you a little bit of the Hebrew so that you can see it, and we'll go from there. Oh, let's pray first, Miss Bakah. I almost forgot. Baruch Hashem Yahuah Eloheinu Malach Ha'olam. Father, thank you for another Shabbat. I pray, Father, that you would comfort those, Father, that are bereaving this morning. I ask you, Father, to continue to reach out globally to those that are searching for truth. Give them truth and give them understanding, Father, and let us be instruments to teach people to keep your commandments, because you said, great are those who not only who teach, but also keep them and do them. Father, help us not only be hearers of the word, but doers also. Now, Father, I pray that you bless my Miss Bakah. Thank you for the hospitality of Shirach Will and Jeanne, I pray that you continue to stretch out your hand to them and be a blessing unto them. And all of our Living Branch Hebrew Assembly family that's out there in live stream land and on YouTube. Thank you for them, Father. Thank you for their diligent efforts. And remember those that are passing out the bookmarkers as a witnessing tool to you. May you be esteemed in everything. In the name of Messiah, Yahusha, Hallel to Yahuah. Amen.
Amen. And Yahuah called to Moshe and spoke to him from the tent of appointment, saying, Speak to the children of Israel and say to them, When any one of you brings an offering to Yahuah, you bring your offerings of the livestock, of the herd, or of the flock.
Okay, this is what I want to show you, Ms. Bakah. The title of our Torah portion comes from, and Yahuah called Moshe. So this word called here is where our Torah portion actually comes from. It's kara, and basically you can see it means to call out. And properly by name. Now I want to show you something over here in the Hebrew. Now this is our word right here, the 7120. But as you can see, it has a vav here in front of it. And what that vav does in the Hebrew, if you were to look up the vav in the Hebrew, you will see here it's basically used as a conjunction or adjective. So it can mean so, then, or and. In our particular context, it means and. Then when you go to the rest of the Hebrew word, let's see if I can get it to come up. Sometimes it acts stubborn, but we're going to work past it. There we go. When you go to the rest of our Hebrew word, the yod means, that's also an add-on, that means he. And then you have the kara, which you'll see over here. That's a kuf, and that's a resh and an olive. Kara. It means to call or proclaim. So this is saying, and he called. So that's our Torah portion for today. And as you can see, you know, when you look in the Hebrew, you will see more than how it says it here in our Torah portion when you first bring it up. So our Torah portion is, and he called. So now, he called Moses. Now, notice what he's speaking about. And what I want you to keep in mind is that even though you're bringing something to the Father, an offering, you're really bringing yourself. So he says here, speak to the children of Israel. If any man of you, and when it's talking about man, it's talking about Adam, mankind. So it could be woman or man. Bring an offering unto Yahuah. You shall bring your offering of the cattle, even the herd, and of the flock. So you couldn't just bring anything you wanted. You know, if you go back and you remember the offerings that Cain and Abel brought, one was accepted, one wasn't. So Abel brought the offering of his flock, the firstling of his flock. What did Cain bring? Cain brought an offering of the ground. So, you know, you can see what the Father's looking for as far as offering. And this is supposed to be a presentation of you, what you're actually bringing. Now, let's look at the word for offering. Kurban. Now, when you look that up, it's something brought near to the altar, a sacrificial present. So you want to bring something acceptable. Now, you don't go into your, you go to your mom's house and you bring old pair. Here, Mom, here's an old pair of rusty shoes. Because your gift is telling what you think of the person. So you want to bring your best. And that's what the same principle you should take for your father. You want to bring your best. You want to bring what he has said to bring. Now, let's see, is there anything else we want to just touch on? And keep in mind that what you're bringing to the altar, you're sacrificing. So even in your offering, something innocent was given for something guilty. Okay, so let's keep reading. We'll read on, how many verses, how many chapters? 17 verses in here. So let's read the whole chapter.
If his offering is an ascending offering of the herd, let him bring a male, a perfect one. Let him bring it at the door of the tent of appointment, for his acceptance before Yahuah. And he shall lay his hand on the head of the ascending offering, and it shall be accepted on his behalf to make atonement for him. And he shall slay the bull before Yahuah, and the sons of Aharon, the priest, shall bring the blood and sprinkle the blood all around the slaughter place, which is at the door of the tent of appointment. And he shall skin the ascending offering and cut it into pieces. And the sons of Aharon, the priest, shall put fire on the slaughter place and lay the wood in the order on the fire. And the sons of Aharon, the priest, shall arrange the pieces with the head and the fat on the wood, which is on the fire on the slaughter place. But its entrails and its legs he washes with water. And the priest shall burn all of it on the slaughter place as the ascending offering, an offering made by fire, a sweet fragrance to Yahuah. And if his offering is from the flock, from the sheep, or from the goats as an ascending offering, let him bring a male, a perfect one. And he shall lay it on the north side of the slaughter place before Yahuah. And the sons of Aharon, the priest, shall sprinkle its blood on the slaughter place all around. And he shall cut it into pieces, with his head and its fat. And the priest shall arrange them on the wood, which is on the fire on the slaughter place. But the entrails and the legs he washes with water. And the priest shall bring it all and burn it on the slaughter place. It is an ascending offering, an offering made by fire, a sweet fragrance to Yahuah. And if the ascending offering of his offering to Yahuah is of birds, then he shall bring his offering of turtle doves or young pigeons. And the priest shall bring it to the slaughter place, and shall wring off its head, and burn it on the slaughter place, and its blood shall be drained out of the side of the slaughter place. And he shall remove its crop with its feathers, and throw it beside the slaughter place on the east side into a place for ashes. And he shall split it at its wings, but not sever it. And the priest shall burn it on the slaughter place, on the wood that is on the fire. It is an ascending offering, an offering made by fire, a sweet fragrance to Yahuah.
Okay, let's try to get a little perspective on this. Of course, we know something innocent, even in these offerings, was given for something that was guilty. And notice there were certain things that the priest, I want you to look at the 8th and 9th verse. And the priests and Aharon's sons shall lay the parts, the head, the fat, in order upon the wood that is on the fire, which is upon the altar. But his inward and his legs shall he wash with water, and the priest shall burn all on the altar to be burnt sacrifice, an offering made by fire of sweet savor unto Yahuah. Now, I want you to think about what's washed with water, the inward parts. And if you would just go and look at some of the places where it talks about just the inward part, what the Father's really looking for when it comes to inward parts. I'll just go to a few places. Because what's inside of a man, remember, it talks about that what you think as a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. What's on the inside. So Psalms 5 verse 9, for there is no faithfulness in his mouth. Their inward part is very wicked. Their throat is open scepters or graves. They flatter with their lips. Now that was talking about the wicked. Their inward thought is that their house shall continue forever, and their dwelling place for all generations. They call their land after their names. Excuse me. Now, this is a very familiar one. Psalms 51 verse 6. Behold, thou desirest truth in the inward parts, in the hidden part, that shall make me to know wisdom. So the Father, on your inward parts, what makes you run and operate, your feelings, your emotions, and how you think, those inward things, he desires it to be built upon his truth. So think about this. If you were to talk about inward parts, what would happen to you if your kidneys didn't work and you didn't get dialysis? You'd die. What if your heart didn't work? What? You'll die. What if your lungs didn't work? You suffocate. So all of those are inward parts. Now I want you to think about the inward parts as far as if you're a liar, you're always lying, or you always have hatred. Those can kill also. But what it does, it doesn't kill it. They can kill on the physical level because it will eventually bring death. But it kills the spirit of what Yahuah wants you to be. He wants you to be filled with his wisdom. He wants you to walk in honesty. He wants you to walk in love. All those things he desires. Let's see, one more. And they searched out iniquity. They accomplished a diligent search. Both the inward thoughts of every one of them and the heart is deep. That's in Psalm 64, verse 6. So now I want you to look at your legs. Talked a little about the inward part. Look at how you walk. Your legs act as your transportation system. And your halak, how you walk, your lifestyle. Those are washed too. So the Father wants you to be able to walk properly. Remember, he talks about the walk as far as, yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I'll fear no evil, for thou art with me. Because the Father is incorporated in how you live and how you walk. But if your walk, it talks about in Proverbs 6, that he hates those whose feet, that's a walk. Don't you need your feet to walk? You can have corns on your feet, but you still walk. But he hates those whose feet are swift to shed blood. So the Father wants our walk to be accordingly. And these offerings, when you look at these offerings, you got to look at what's being incorporated in the offering, what parts are being washed. And remember, it had to come before the Father. Could you bring a lamb that had a messed up foot?
Nope.
Nope, you couldn't do that. Could you bring him if he had a defect in his eye. No, it had to be without blemish. And this is a picture of how the Father wants us to present ourselves before him. When our lives come before him and we are walking and doing what he tells us to do, it's like a sweet smelling odor in his nostrils. But when our lives are full of hatred, full of lies, and full of things, untruths, then it comes as a stench before him. It's like someone that goes to the bathroom and forgets to spray. It's a stench. It can knock you out. So, and I know this is kind of my version. I'm trying to put this in a fashion where people can see and understand and get an idea, because he's calling us to be set apart. He's calling us to have truth on our inward parts. Okay, let's go on to chapter 2. But I did want to, make sure. And notice that the offerings incorporate, somebody might not even be able to afford a lamb or bullock. But guess what? Even a pigeon was you could use that as a sacrifice. So the Father made it open for everybody. So how many verses we got in chapter 2?
16.
Okay, let's go ahead and read all of those.
And when anyone brings a grain offering to Yahuah, his offering is to be of fine flour, and he shall pour oil on it, and put frankincense on it. And he shall bring it to the sons of Aaron, the priests, and he shall take from it his hand, filled with fine flour and oil, with all the frankincense. And the priest shall burn it as a remembrance portion on the slaughter place, an offering made by fire, a sweet fragrance unto Yahuah. And the rest of the grain offering is for Aaron and his sons, most set apart of the offering to Yahuah by fire. And when you bring an offering, a grain offering baked in the oven, it is of unleavened cakes, of fine flour mixed with oil, or unleavened thin cakes anointed with oil. But if your offering is a grain offering on the girdle, it is of fine flour, unleavened, mixed with oil. Divide it into bits and pour oil on it. It is a grain offering. And if your offering is a grain offering, in the stew pot, it is made of fine flour with oil. And you shall bring it to Yahuah, the grain offering that is made of these, and shall present it to the priest, and he shall bring it to the slaughter place. And the priest shall take from the grain offering a remembrance portion, and burn it on the slaughter place, an offering made by fire, a sweet fragrance to Yahuah. And the rest of the grain offering is for Aaron and his sons, most set apart of the offering of Yahuah made by fire. No grain offering which you bring to Yahuah is made with leaven, for you do not burn any leaven or any honey in the offering to Yahuah made by fire. Bring them to Yahuah as an offering of the first fruits, but they are not burnt on the slaughter place for a sweet fragrance. And season with salt every offering of your grain offering, and do not allow the salt of the covenant of your Elohim to be lacking for your grain offering. With all your offerings you bring salt. And if you bring a grain offering of your first fruits to Yahuah, bring for the grain offering of your first fruits green heads of grain roasted on the fire, crushed heads of new grain. And you shall put oil on it, and lay frankincense on it. If it is a grain offering, and for the priest shall burn the remembrance portion from its crushed grain, and from its oil, with all the frankincense, an offering made by fire to Yahuah.
Okay. This is, now, I know in the King James it says meat offering. But there's actually no meat in this offering. It's actually grain. It's a better translation for it would actually be a grain offering and not a meat offering. Minka. And it's a donation. So this is voluntary. It's a gift. Now, when you think pictographically, grain is a picture of people in Scripture. So when anyone brings a grain offering to Yahuah, his offering is to be of fine flour, poured oil on it, and put frankincense in it. As you've seen for the offering, it's something you use to draw near. And I want you to notice there's no leaven in it. So think about when you present yourself. Leaven is a type, this particular leaven can be a type of sin. You can't present yourself to him in a sin state. When I mean present yourself, I'm talking about the life you live. Of course, when you first come to him, you're going to be sin, and that's why you're washed and you're cleansed so you can be presentable. Now, notice, nor could it have honey. So and I kind of consider the honey our righteousness because it tastes sweet, but it's something that's added into that the Father didn't prescribe. So none of our righteousness or goodness goes before him. It's got to be all according to his commandments. So you can look at it, sometimes people, they are morally good. Well, that's like a honey. He's not looking for the morally good. He's looking for those that do things because he said to do them. Okay? And it's offered by fire. Now, one of the interesting things I want you to look, the word for fire is ish. Same word for husband. Same. So, just something for you to look at and think about. Now, let's see. Let's keep going down. And let's see the first fruit they offered. Now, I don't know if you ever have tried frankincense. The real frankincense actually will burn your skin, but it has a very nice smell to it. And that was one of the things that's offered in. Now, keep in mind, every offering had to have salt. No, every offering had to have salt. And when you go back and you start looking, any offering, whether it was grain, any sacrifice, had to have that salt on it. Look in verse 13. And every oblation, that's offering, of meat offering shall thou season with salt. Neither shalt thou suffer the salt of the covenant of thy Elohim to be lacking from any milka. With all thy offerings thou shalt, and that word offering there is kaban. So all offerings, not just the meat, but all of them had to have salt on them. That was a requirement. So even your grain offering had to have salt. All the offerings that you put on the altar had to have salt. And remember, what did the Mashiach say about salt? When salt has lost its preserving power, it's good for nothing but to be sprinkled out and tread upon by men. So all of us like salt. Salt keeps our food from being bland, and it's a part of the Father's covenant. So let's go on to verse chapter 3. And I pray this is being a blessing. Of course, we could go a lot. You can go all into word pictures and different things. But this particular one I'm kind of trying to do for those that are starting out, so I don't want to overwhelm them. Okay, let's keep reading. How many verses in chapter?
17.
17? Okay. Let's read the whole chapter then.
And if that which is present is a slaughtering, a peace offering, if he is bringing it of the herd, whether male or female, he brings a perfect one before Yahuah. And he shall lay his hand on the head of his offering, and lay it at the door of the tent of appointment. And the sons of Aharon, the priest, shall sprinkle the blood on the slaughter place all around. And from the slaughtering of peace offerings, he shall bring a fire offering to Yahuah, the fat that covers the entrails, and all the fat that is on the entrails, and the 2 kidneys, and the fat that is on them by the loins, and the appendage on the liver, which he removes with the kidneys. And his sons and the sons of Aharon shall burn it on the slaughter place upon an ascending offering, which is on the wood, which is on the fire, as an offering made by fire, a sweet fragrance to Yahuah. And if that which he presents is from the flock, from a slaughtering of peace offerings to Yahuah, male or female, he brings a perfect one. If he is bringing a lamb as his offering, then he shall bring it before Yahuah, and shall lay his hand on the head of his offering, and lay it in front of the tent of appointment. And the sons of Aharon shall sprinkle its blood on the slaughter place round about. And from the slaughtering of peace offerings he shall bring near as a fire offering to Yahuah its fat, all the fat tail, which he removes close to the backbone, and the fat that covers the entrails, and all the fat is on the entrails, and the 2 kidneys, and the fat that is on them by the loins, and the appendage on the liver, which he removes with the kidneys. And the priest shall burn them on the slaughter place as food, an offering made by fire to Yahuah. And if his offering is a goat, then he shall bring it before Yahuah, and shall lay his hand on its head, slay it before the tent of appointment, and the sons of Aharon shall sprinkle its blood on the slaughter place all around. And from it he shall bring his offering as an offering made by fire to Yahuah, the fat that covers the entrails, and all the fat that is on the entrails, and the 2 kidneys, and the fat that is on them by the loin, and the appendage on the liver, which he removes with the kidneys. And the priest shall burn them on the slaughter place as food, an offering made by fire for a sweet fragrance. All the fat belongs to Yahuah. An everlasting law throughout your generations in all your dwellings. You do not eat any fat or any blood.
Okay, so there at the end, we can't eat the fat. We can't eat the blood. And we know it talks about the life is in the blood. Now, I want you to notice what's burned. I want you to think of what function do your kidneys play in the body. Your kidneys cleanse your blood. So that cleansing part is burned in the fire. What does your liver do in your body?
Liver cleanses your blood.
Your liver also cleanses your blood and provides bile things that help to break down substances that come into your body. That's also, and if I remember correctly, the Hebrew word for liver and for esteem, because your liver is the heaviest organ in your body. So you'll find that those are burned in the fire. and knows it's a perpetual covenant. Now, when it talks about some of this, the priest would keep, and some was burned, because the priest had to be supported. But I want you to keep in mind that he intended for all of us to be a part of the priesthood. Originally, we were supposed to be a kingdom of priests serving him. Now, though we don't do these offerings today, we can get great meaning out of these offerings in how we present ourselves to the Father and how we're to function before the Father, and how we approach him, how things ascend up before him, and what's required. Because because remember, he talks about he doesn't really desire the sacrifices and the offering. He desires truth. His desire is for us to be obedient, because it talks about in Yahuah, Isaiah, that obedience is better than sacrifice. He didn't want you just, I committed a sin, so I have no emotional attachment to doing wrong to you, Father, so I'm just going to go kill this goat, and my sins are done away with. Then I just keep doing the same thing and killing the goat. What he wants is obedience. That he said something, that thou should not steal. And because he said it, he wants you to be obedient. And if you happen to fall short, ask for forgiveness, have a remorseful heart, and not do it again. But what happens, sometimes we do things and we are not remorseful and we continue to do them. Some people are good actors. They can cry at the drop of a dime. But the Father knows your heart. And he knows whether it's sincere or not. So when you're presenting yourself to the Father, I just exalt you to make sure you're giving him your best. Giving him your best in your emotions, giving him your best, your feelings, giving him your best in your inward parts. Just the best of you. And not half-stepping and making excuses when you know you can do better. Okay, let's go on to chapter 4. Does that one have a lot of verses too?
That one has 35.
Now, this chapter, the other dealt with voluntary things. If you want to bring an offering to him as a gift. Now, I want you to notice the language change in chapter 4.
And Yahuah spoke to Moshe, saying, Speak to the children of Israel, saying, When a being sins by mistake against any of the commands of Yahuah, which are not to be done, and shall do any of them, if the anointed priest sins, bringing guilt on the people, then he shall bring to Yahuah for his sin, which he has sinned, a young bull, a perfect one, as a sin offering. And he shall bring the bull to the door of the tent of appointment before Yahuah, and shall lay his hand on the bull's head, and slay the bull before Yahuah. And the anointed priest shall take some of the bull's blood, and bring it to the tent of appointment. And the priest shall dip his finger in the blood, and sprinkle some of the blood 7 times before Yahuah in front of the veil of the set-apart place. And the priest shall put some of the blood on the horns of the slaughter place of sweet incense before Yahuah, which is in the tent of appointment, and pour all of the blood of the bull at the base of the slaughter place of the ascending offering, which is the door of the tent of appointment. Then he takes all the fat of the bull as the sin offering, the fat that covers the entrails, and all the fat which is on the entrails. and the 2 kidneys, and the fat that is on them by the loins, and the appendage on the liver, which he removes with the kidneys. As it is taken from the bull of the slaughtering of peace offerings, and the priest shall burn them on the slaughter place of the ascending offering. But the skin of the bull, and all its flesh, with its head and legs, its entrails, and its dung, all of the bull he shall bring outside the camp to a clean place, where the ashes are poured out, and burn it on wood with fire. There the ashes are poured out, it is burned. And if the entire congregation of Israel strays by mistake, and the matter has been hidden from the eyes of the assembly, and they have done against any of the commands of Yahuah, which are not to be done, and shall be guilty. When the sin which they have sinned becomes known, then the assembly shall bring a young bull for the sin, and bring it before the tent of appointment. And the elders of the congregation shall lay their hands on the head of the bull before Yahuah, and the bull shall be slain before Yahuah. And the anointed priest shall bring some of the bull's blood to the tent of appointment. And the priest shall dip his finger in the blood and sprinkle it 7 times before Yahuah in front of the veil, and put some of the blood on the horns of the slaughter place, which is before Yahuah, which is in the tent of appointment, and pour all of the blood at the base of the slaughter place of ascending offering, which is at the door of the tent of appointment. Then he takes all of the fat from it, and shall burn it on the slaughter place. And he shall do with the bull as he did with the bull as a sin offering. So shall he do it. And the priest shall make atonement for them, and it shall be forgiven them. And he shall bring the bull outside the camp and burn it as he burned the first bull. It is a sin offering for the assembly. When a ruler sins, and by mistake has done against any of the commands of Yahuah, his Elohim, which are not to be done, and shall be found guilty, or if his sin which he has sinned is made known to him, then he shall bring as his offering a buck of the goats, a male, a perfect one. And he shall lay his hand on the head of the goat, and slay it at the place where they slay the ascending offerings before Yahuah. It is a sin offering. And the priest shall take some of the blood of the sin offering with his finger, and shall put it on the horns of the slaughter place of ascending offerings, and pour his blood at the base of the slaughter place of ascending offering. And burn all of its fat on the slaughter place, like the fat of the slaughtering of the peace offering, and the priest shall make atonement for him for his sin, and it shall be forgiven him. And if any being of the people of the land sins by mistake, by doing against any of the commands of Yahuah, which are not to be done, and shall be guilty, or if his sin which he has sinned shall be made known to him, then he shall bring as his offering a female goat, a perfect one, for his sin which he has sinned. And he shall lay his hand on the head of the sin offering, and slay the sin offering at the place of the ascending offering. And the priest shall take some of its blood with his finger, and shall put it on the horns of the slaughter place, an ascending offering, and pour all the blood at the base of the slaughter place. Then remove all of its fat, as fat is removed from the slaughtering of the peace offerings. And the priest shall burn it on the slaughter place for a sweet fragrance to Yahuah. And the priest shall make atonement for him, and it shall be forgiven him. And if he brings a lamb as a sin offering, he brings a female, a perfect one. And he shall lay his hand on the head of the sin offering, and slay it as a sin offering at the place where he slay the ascending offering. And the priest shall take some of the blood of the sin offering with his finger, and shall put it on the horns of the slaughter place of ascending offering, and pour all the blood at the base of the slaughter place. Then he removes all its fat, as the fat of the lamb is removed from the slaughtering of the peace offering. And the priest shall burn it on the slaughter place according to the fire offerings to Yahuah. So the priest shall make atonement for his sin, that he has sinned, and it shall be forgiven him.
Alrighty. Now, Ms. Baka, I want you to, you can see some of the procedures are just the same, kind of the same. But this is a sin offering. And notice it's talking about when you sin through ignorance. And because some things you might not have known in the commandments that you have to do. So if you didn't know, but you find out, then you still have to come and make atonement for that sin. Now, it deals with the category. It says here in verse 3. Well, it starts out in verse 2. Speak unto the children of Israel, saying, if a soul shall sin through ignorance against any of the commandments of Yahuah concerning the things which ought not be done, and shall do against any of them. Then it says, if the priest that is anointed do sin, according to the people, so that lets you know the priest could fall short. He had to bring an offering, a bullock. The father was specific what he had to bring. And he had to bring the bullock unto the door of the tabernacle of the congregation before Yahuah. And he had to lay hands on the bullock and kill the bullock before Yahuah. So the priest, if he sinned, he had to bring the bullock. That bullock was a picture of what should have happened to him for sinning. He should have died. Remember, it talks about the soul that sinneth, all souls are mine, and the soul that sinneth, it shall surely die. So when the priest slaughtered that bull at the door of the tabernacle, it was a picture to him that he should have died. But sometimes people do stuff so much that they become, what's a good word? Complacent. They become immune, desensitized. So they sin. Oh, I can just go off a bullock. So they keep sinning. But see, the Father is not after just the bullock. He's after you not sinning. And he wanted them to see the picture of what should have happened to them. Now Mashiach, or the Messiah, Yahushua, is our high priest. And he's the one that, he was also our, behold, it says in St. John or Yehukanan, behold the Lamb of Elohim that takes away the sins of the world. He died as a sin offering for us. So notice, he had a certain procedure. They had to take the blood. They had to they had to sprinkle blood 7 times before the Father, before the veil. And the priest had to put some blood on the horns of the altar. So, and not only did it go for the priests, but you see it addressed the congregation as a whole. The whole congregation. Because the whole congregation, remember there were times in the wilderness when the whole congregation murmured against the Father. Then it goes on, and now for the congregation, the elders, the Zakim, the aged ones were the ones that had to lay their hands on the sacrifice. Then it goes on again and breaks it down. A ruler. Now, what is a ruler? A Nasah. That's a prince or a leader. Remember, they were made captains of thousands, hundreds, tens. So the leaders, if they sinned, guess what? They had to go. They sinned through ignorance. They had to bring an offering, a kid of a male goat, a male without blemish, and they had to lay hands. That particular person had to lay hands on the altar, on the sacrifice, and kill it. Then finally it gets down to the common person. So nobody, if you found out 10 years down the road. Now for us, it says in 1 John 1:9, if we confess our sins, he is faithful and just to forgive us our sins and cleanse us from all unrighteousness. So if you find out that you did something wrong, you still have to confess. You still have to ask for forgiveness. Those rules still apply. Yes?
Do you have to do it publicly?
It depends on whether the sin was publicly. So if you did it to an individual, then your apology or the forgiveness should be towards that individual. But let's say it was towards a congregation, then you would need to do it to the whole congregation. And if it was a sin just towards the father, then you need to let him know.
Well, the priests are always involved because the priest has to do
Right.
the actual burning. So the priest always has to be involved. But do I have to involve everybody else? Can I not just go to the priest and say, I realize I did something wrong?
You
with
mean
my
nowadays?
offering? Even back then.
It just depends. Now remember, some sin came with consequences. So it just depends. You know, you can do things. Let's say you slandered your neighbor. We'll use that as a hypothetical. And you didn't realize that he told us that we should not run up and down being a talebearer. And you did it through ignorance. But when you found out, then you have to go to that neighbor, be reconciled. Then you have to also go to the Father. See, some things pull other people in. So you have to make sure that you're in right standing. Now, some folks try to shortcut it. I wouldn't. I would try to make sure I'm pleasing unto him. But that is correct. The priest did take part in all of these. And fortunately for us, now we have a high priest, Yahushua HaMashiach. Yahushua the Messiah. Now, I'm going to, let's see, I want to read a couple of verses, and then I'll let you finish reading. But these are so important. Let's look at the 5th chapter. Because this is, if the Messiah was sinless, we have to figure out how did the sins of the people, he was sinless, how did they get transferred to him? And keep in mind that when it says it prophesied in Isaiah, he was a lamb led to the slaughter, and that he opened not his mouth, and that he was basically, he was dumb. So, what was he dumb about? What didn't he not say? Because Israel was definitely sin, and he saw it because he's the Word. So he saw everything they did. So in the 5th chapter, 1st verse, if a soul sin and hear the voice of swearing and is a witness, whether he has seen or known of it, if he do not utter it, then he shall bear his iniquity. Or if a soul touches an unclean thing, whether it be a carcass of an unclean beast, or a carcass of an unclean cattle, or carcass of an unclean creeping thing, if it be hid from him, he also shall be unclean and guilty. If he touches the unclean, if he touches the uncleanness of man, whatsoever uncleanness it be that a man shall be defiled withal, and it be hid from him, then he knoweth of it, then he is guilty. So look back at the first verse. And if a soul sin and hear the voice of swearing and is a witness, whether he has seen or known of it, if he do not utter it, then he shall bear his iniquity. So there's a guilt. If you see somebody sin, see somebody tell a lie, and you go along with the lie and don't expose it, guess what? You're guilty too. So this is how the Mashiach, he's witnessed all the sins of Israel. But when it came time for him to die as a innocent man, he did not witness against him because those sins had to be transferred to him. So he bore that guilt of not telling. And the transfer took place. So he was able to die for all of the lost sheep of the house of Yasrael. So if you would keep reading in the 4th verse.
Or when a being swears, speaking rashly with his lips, to do evil or to do good, whatever it is that a man swears rashly with an oath, and it has been hidden from him, when he shall know it, then he shall be guilty of one of these. And it shall be, when he is guilty of one of these, that he shall confess that in which he has sinned.
He shall what?
Confess.
Oh, people don't like to confess when they're wrong and they've sinned. Go ahead.
And shall bring his guilt offering to Yahuah for his sin which he has sinned, a female from the flock, a lamb or a female goat as a sin offering. And the priest shall make atonement for him for his sin. And if he is unable to bring a lamb, then he shall bring it to Yahuah. He who has sinned, 2 turtle doves, or 2 young pigeons, one for the sin offering, and the other for an ascending offering. And he shall bring them to the priest, who shall bring near that which is for the sin offering first, and nib off its head from its neck, but not sever it. And he shall sprinkle some of the blood of the sin offering on the side of the slaughter place, and the rest of the blood he shall drain out of the base of the slaughter place. It is a sin offering. And he shall prepare the second as an ascending offering according to the right ruling. And the priest shall make atonement for him, for his sin which he has sinned, and it shall be forgiven him. But if he is unable to bring 2 turtle doves, or 2 young pigeons, then he who has sinned shall bring for his offering 1/10 of an ephah of the fine flour as a sin offering. He puts no oil on it, nor does he put any frankincense on it, for it is a sin offering. And he shall bring it to the priest, and the priest shall take his hand filled with it as a remembrance portion, and burn it on the slaughter place according to the offering made by fire to Yahuah. It is a sin offering. And the priest shall make atonement for him, for his sin, that he has sinned in any of these, and it shall be forgiven him. And it shall be the priest's like a grain offering. And Yahuah spoke to Moshe, saying, When a being commits a trespass and has sinned by mistake against the set-apart matters of Yahuah, then he shall bring to Yahuah as his guilt offering a ram, a perfect one, from the flock, with your valuation in shekels of silver, according to the shekel of the set apart as a guilt offering. And he shall make good for the sin that he has done against that which is set apart, and shall add 1/5 to it, and give it to the priest. And the priest shall make atonement for him with the ram of the guilt offering, and it shall be forgiven him. And when any being sins, and has done what is not to be done against any of the commands of Yahuah, though he knew it not, yet he shall be guilty, and shall bear his crookedness. Then he shall bring to the priest a ram, a perfect one, from the flock, with your valuation as a guilt offering, and the priest shall make atonement for his mistake he committed unintentionally, though he did not know it, and it shall be forgiven him. And it is a guilt offering. He was truly guilty before Yahuah.
So this particular one, wasn't it kind of interesting? So pleading, I didn't know, is not good enough. It is not good enough to just, well, I didn't know. You're still guilty. Now I wanted to show you one thing. If you have a chance, go to Psalms 40. And I want you to see what the psalmist here says. We'll start in the 5th verse. Tehillim 40. Many, O Yahuah my Elohim, are thy wonderful works which thou hast done, and thy thoughts which are to us ward. They cannot be reckoned up in order unto thee. If I would declare and speak of them, they are more than can be numbered. Look at verse 6. Sacrifices and offerings thou dost not desire. My ears hast thou opened. Burnt offerings and sin offering hath thou not required. Then said I, lo, I come in the volume of the book to be written of me. I delight to do thy will, O Elohim. Yea, thy law. Notice what it says, thy Torah. Did you see this? Torah is within my heart. I preach righteousness in the great congregation. Lo, I have not refrained my lips, O Yahuah, thou knowest. I have not hid thy righteousness within my heart. I have declared thy faithfulness and thy salvation. I have not concealed thy loving kindness and thy truth from the great congregation. Then he says, withhold not thou though thy tender mercies from me, O Yahuah. Let thy loving kindness and thy truth continually preserve me. For innumerable evils have compassed me about. My iniquities have taken hold upon me, so that I am not able to look up. They are more than the hairs of my head. Therefore my heart faileth. Be pleased, O Yahuah, to deliver me. O Yahuah, make haste to help me. Let them be ashamed and confound together that seek after my soul to destroy it. Let them be driven backwards and put to shame that wish me evil. So the Father is looking for more than just, his desire is not to burn offerings. He wants you to get a picture out of those. His desire is obedience. Obedience, obedience, obedience. That is what he's looking for. All right, Miss Bakar, we glad you joined us today. And we just wanted to look over things. If you haven't joined our book market witnessing team, you can do so. The website is www.bm.hebrewfoundation.org, or you can email us at bookmark@living-branch.org. Also, if you'd like to help in our efforts to continually give these bookmarkers out free, you can go to www.living-branch.org and click on online giving. It'll take you to this website right here. You can use this right here, quick give. If you would like to just not register, you can give by check. You can give by debit card, credit card. And it'll be a blessing, and we will be ever thankful because we give and mail these bookmarkers out for free. We don't charge anyone for them, but we do ask those that would like to support us in our efforts to please support so we can continue in our efforts to use these excellent tools as a platform. And just so you can see what our next bookmark is going to look like, we kind of revamped and redid the color. And it goes through all these scriptures that will lead a person to the Messiah and to the Father, and also give them idea of how to keep the commandments and what they must do. So this is just, so that you can see, and it gives some resources for them to go to, and it lets them know that until Revelations 21 verse 6 is spoken or fulfilled, he has spoken it, then his law or his Torah still stands. So, Ms. Bakar, we are grateful for you joining us today. And we just want to say Shabbat Shalom to everyone out there. And if you have any questions, you can email us at info@living-branch.org. And remember, we are always praying for you. You can join us on Fridays or the Reb Shabbat for our service at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, where we do our prayer and prophecy. You can send your prayers in to us, and we are here to help, praying and just interceding for those that ask. So I pray that you make this day a burden-free day, and that you enjoy the rest of the day as far as keeping the Father first and doing things that pertain to Him, making sure there are no burdens on His Shabbat. So, as we have traditionally done, from my family or my Miss Bakar to your Miss Bakar, we all say Shabbat Shalom.